There's some strange mark in my music. What's going on? It's Jason Heath, and it can come as a shock that we have to read music that's not in bass clef. It's a bass, right? What are they thinking? So in this video, we're going to dig into how to play in treble clef, how to play in tenor clef, plus something crazy about the way bass music is written that you probably never knew, so stick around to the end of the video. Let's take a look at treble clef, and you just need to find some landmarks and kind of build from there. So let's take the octave harmonics. They look like this in bass clef, and they're here in treble clef. And you'll notice this G right here, that is what the clef is circled around. That's why we call this a G clef. So that's a good way to remember where to start, is just that line that's circled by the clef, that's the note G. And just having a few notes under your fingers, like a G scale, will help. That D is a great landmark too. Just familiarizing yourself and putting a finger to a note on the page. This fingering is great for me when starting out with this because I can just sort of remember, and just running up and down that octave is really helpful. You're not going to write much lower than the open G string for treble clef, so it's good to start on the open G and practice and look and just see where these are. Again, just putting a spot on the page associated with a finger and a spot on the bass, that's the way to get going, and you just build from there. Tenor clef is used as kind of the in-between zone between treble and bass. It's a little bit old-fashioned these days. You don't see it used a lot, but it's in a lot of older music and orchestra music and solo music, so you need to have some basic understanding of playing tenor clef, especially if you're doing anything classical. Let's just take the exact same notes. We've got the octave harmonic right here, and then this is how they look in tenor, and then just running up here. You're not really going to find tenor clef much higher than this C, but just so you know, at that point, just about any composer would switch over to treble clef. So tenor is really just kind of this in-between zone from the D to the G, and notes kind of a little bit above and below it. You will see some of this low stuff in tenor clef though, so getting comfortable with is helpful with tenor clef, and you can just run down the G string and practice. And that's about as low as you're going to find for tenor clef as the open D, but just getting comfortable with what those low notes look like on the page, what those high notes look like on the page, that's the way to get started with tenor clef. Okay, now for that crazy thing about bass clef. We bass players actually read an octave up from the sounding pitch. I'll bet you didn't know that, but if you ever look at tuba music and try to play it and you realize it's written down so low, that's where we actually play. So even though we read this as being the top space on the bass clef staff, it's actually sounding the lowest line on the bass clef. So that seems a little bit weird, perhaps. Why don't we just play like tubists and play with all those ledger lines? Well, it's a little bit harder to read, it's tradition. And just like why is some music written in tenor clef? Tradition. Treble clef, tradition and practicality, but we bass players read an octave up, so we're kind of a transposing instrument if you think about it.
Interesting.
Hopefully that'll get you started on treble and tenor clef. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.